Bittersweet Dissonance by Watermelon's Melon Felon. How are things going in Russia? Yuuri fidgeted with the cuff of his sleeve. Of all the things he had wanted his older sister to ask him when he finally decided to do more than text her, that was the first question she had to ask. He didn't want to lie, and if she had called him 3 months ago, he probably would have lied his best. Now, though, he could actually have something truthful to say to her face. Good, he told her. And it was very true. Ever since being with Victor, things had been much better. He didn't have to worry about how he was going to eat, nor did he have to agonize over waking early to go to the coffee shop in order to make use of their Wi-Fi. His clothes were washed on time, and his housemate was a nice man who was goofy and attractive and much better than Yuuri could have asked for. And then there was Maka, who was a cuddle monster and loved to jump into bed with Yuuri anytime. Yes, things had been going a lot better, and he was eternally grateful. That's good, said Mari with a small grin. We'd been worried when you stopped updating your Insta. Usually there was some kind of photo every few days, but you were gone for almost 3 weeks and wouldn't say anything in your messages, so we weren't sure of what was going on. Damn, he wasn't very social media savvy to begin with, but he'd forgotten that when people went missing for a certain amount of time, their followers would be notified. In this case, his sister, a ballet instructor, who would, of course, tell his parents if they thought there was something wrong. And just when he thought he'd managed to keep his distressing time away from their notice, this had to be brought up. Of course, nothing was ever easy, was it? I was a little busy, he admitted, because it was indeed true. He'd been out and about in the winter weather, braving the harsh elements in order to earn money so he wouldn't be homeless. He didn't have time to play around and have fun or post selfies of himself going out to eat. I had fallen out of contact with Peachy for a while as well. He already reprimanded me, though, and we've been talking a lot more frequently. Mari hummed. So what about that guy you're with? Haven't heard about him in a while. We, separated a while back. He sounded so pathetic. People broke up all the time. It wasn't anything big. Is that so? Oh, she sounded very angry, and that was not good. And where have you been staying while living in a foreign country? I'm with a new friend. I met him back in January. And who is this friend? What does he do for a living? Is he anything like your ex? Should I get Minako-sensei to go to Russia to instill some fear into him so he behaves? His name is Victor, and he's great. He doesn't need any kind of fear to be instilled because he's endlessly kind and sweet. He's a figure skater and is kind of well known in the country. He definitely didn't need a sensei to come all the way to Russia just to give Victor the shovel talk. She would do it too. There was a bit of shuffling over the line as Mari shifted her mobile. Distantly, he could hear the typing of keys coming from Mari's end. She was on her laptop. Victor Nikiforovu? His sister said, pronouncing the name quite horribly, though it didn't move to correct her. He's more than well known, Yukun, and his Instagram seems to be a shrine to your existence. Something else you've forgotten to add? Flushed and terribly embarrassed, Yuuri said, he's excitable and a really good friend. Uh-huh. And I might be a little smitten and might be planning on how I'm going to ask him out properly. Well, he certainly likes you. Don't forget to bring him home so everyone can meet him officially. Kasan will want to know her future son-in-law. Yuuri was left sputtering into the phone even as the call ended. He looked down at Maka, who was sleeping at the foot of his bed. Maka, you wouldn't mind if I made a move on your father, right? A squeaky noise was the only response he got. He took it as Maka giving him her blessing. Yuuri! Victor had assured the man that he didn't need to meet him at the airport. Victor hadn't wanted him to waste more money than was necessary. Besides, Victor could just come to him anyway, so why did Yuuri need to go out of his way? Besides, Victor would be able to glomp the other without all the paparazzi getting in their faces. It was a win-win situation either way. Yuuri usually lingered around the rink on these days, and as it was now April, the weather was nice and comforting. The sun was shining already, despite it being so early. Victor had gotten a cab to the rink instead of the house because he knew where Yuuri would be. He wanted to see Yuuri, and then he wanted to go home and just relax after his taxing victory at Worlds. Relaxing with Yuuri was the best. He was especially excited to see both Yuuri and Maka at the park. Yuuri actually brought Maka along when he went places. Such love. Both perked up adorably the moment they laid eyes on him, and both looked ready for a glomp, though he almost couldn't decide which one to love on first. The decision was taken from him when Victor was taken to the concrete thanks to his overgrown puppy, while Yuuri stood a few feet away smiling at him softly. Maka excitedly lavished him with kisses, and he couldn't help but laugh and scratch at her chin. Daddy missed you too, Maka! Have you been good for our Yuuri? Woof! Yuuri was standing over him, leaning down a bit in order to get a better look at his face. It's good to see you in person, Victor. If his face had flushed from seeing Yuuri and hearing those words, no one would be able to tell because he had run across the street as well as the entire length of the park in order to see Yuuri faster. His face was already red and his breathing was a bit erratic. No one would be able to tell whether or not it was because of Yuuri or the running. I have something for you, said Victor, pushing himself to his feet and pulling his gold medal out from under his shirt. I haven't taken it off once since I got it! Yuri's brow quirked. You didn't even take it off when you showered? He teased, smile only growing. I'll flush. Well, I did for that, but other than when I was in the shower, it remained firmly in place, awaiting your lips. It sounded not as good when it came out of his mouth. His brain had made it seem suave and seductive, but it just sounded weird. Why was he being betrayed by his own mind? I don't remember seeing it during your exhibition performance, Yuuri added. Well, no, he relented. It would have fallen off if I had worn it then. And what about... Victor placed a finger against Yuri's lips to halt the flow of words. Sometimes the other was far too snarky for his own good. Yuuri, I brought you the gold. That's what matters. You have to fulfill your end of the bargain now. As expected, Yuri's face turned an adorable shade of pink. But the man stepped closer, taking up the warm metal and shifting it a bit so he could see the face of it. The thrill of pleasure that curled up his spine when Yuuri bent to place a kiss on the gold made Victor almost lightheaded. He hadn't expected the vision to be so arousing, but there Yuuri was, once again defying logic. Victor was so screwed, so deliciously screwed, and he honestly couldn't think of anything better in that moment, because it was Katsuki Yuuri who made him feel such things. Congratulations, Vitya. It was now. It had to be now, because he couldn't wait. Yuuri, can I ask a massive favor of you? Victor began, taking a hold of Yuri's hands so that he could have all of the others' attention. He was a bit possessive that way, and his heart practically did quad flips on its own when Yuuri decided to give him any form of attention. Those eyes staring up at him made him giddy! Sure? I've been wanting to ask if you could compose the music for the routines I've choreographed for next season. The group I usually work with are unavailable until mid-August, and I've been wanting to ask you for your help, but I didn't want to just come out with it the day we met. It didn't seem right, and I wanted to make sure you would have the time to do it before laying such a request upon your shoulders. Yuri's jaw practically hit the ground. He looked across between happy and scared. You mean you'd be skating to the music and millions of people all around the world will hear it? Yeah! And you want me to do it? Please! He begged, using his famous puppy eyes. You're amazing! And I really can't think of anyone I want more! It's almost as if I was made to ask you, seeing as this all fell into place so wonderfully after we met! Yuuri glanced at his violin case, which was still open on the ground, filled with a rainbow of notes from however long he'd been stood in the park playing music for random passers-by. It had to at least be a few hours, judging by the amount he'd gathered. I wouldn't dare presume or anything, but I finished those arrangements I've been working on for the past few weeks, and they were inspired by you, and I wanted to show you them, so while you were gone, I recorded them onto a blank disc. Yuuri bent down and retrieved a small CD case from the small compartment within his violin case. I don't think Agape is finished quite yet because I need a singer, but it's still pretty good, and I think you'll like them, he admitted, ducking his head a bit and probably wishing he had a scarf or a turtleneck to hide his face in. Victor, however, was super glad that Yuuri couldn't hide in plain sight at the moment. He'd said that Victor inspired the finished songs. Nothing in the world could have made him happier, save for Yuuri kissing his gold medal so sweetly. And it was the most amazing gift to receive from someone one admired. 2 songs inspired by you as a person. That was the most romantic revelation ever. He felt like flying! I know you have this thing about personal space, Yuuri, so if you don't want me to kiss you, step away now. He gave the other man 3 seconds to move if he comprehended the meaning behind Victor's words before tugging him in by the lapels, laying a kiss on him. It wasn't perfect, and it didn't possess any level of deep emotion yet, but it was endlessly wonderful and better than any other kiss he'd ever had, even if no tongue was involved, even if it didn't last very long. And when they pulled apart, Yuuri stood dazedly before him, blinking rapidly as he tried to put 2 and 2 together. Wow! Was all the man could say. Maybe I should compose more songs for you if that's what you'll do in response. Victor's tortured groan got him a grin from his friend and hopefully soon-to-be lover. Yuuri's random moments of sass were sexy as hell. Their future was going to be fun together. Kiss me again, though, just to be sure. What is this? Yuuri smiled calmly and replied to the blonde's harsh tone. He remembered being a teenager and all the angst that had heaped onto his shoulders. He couldn't really blame the boy for his gruff attitude most of the time, and there was no point in getting offended. Besides, he had a lot on his plate. Victor had told Yuuri about what Yuuri Bladzetsky did for his family. For some reason, the just-turned 15-year-old was the main breadwinner of the family, so meddling in competitions was an absolute must. Now that the comfort of being the best was taken out from under him, he was faced with the sudden stresses of having to win. Where he was the best in juniors, he wasn't the best in seniors. Some skaters who were in the senior division were holding a decade of competitive experience or more over his head, Victor being one of them. The chance of winning the prize money for getting gold was incredibly low now. There was no guarantee that he'd make the podium at all. Add on the fact that he was so young and would most likely be the baby in the competition, and there was trouble brewing. Then add in the fact that he was nearing puberty and a growth spurt, and life was becoming hell for the blonde. So no, he wasn't offended by the other's tone. He merely smiled. This is just one arrangement of the song. It is called On Love Agape, Yuuri told him. It's about unconditional love, he clarified. Why does that idiot get the sexy one? Yuuri demanded, aggressively pointing at Victor, who was running through the choreography that he'd made just by listening to a few seconds of the unfinished product Yuuri had made a month ago. Victor indeed looked very sexy, and when Yuuri revealed the flamenco history of the song, Victor had easily taken the choreograph up a notch. Or 10. The man could flamenco dance, apparently. Like Yuuri, he'd retained some of the lessons from his dance classes with Minako-sensei. The Japanese loved flamenco, and his sensei had been particularly fond of it. So Victor, picking up on the vibes easily and then almost controlling them with his body, was amazing and inspiring all at once. Victor is a grown man who doesn't look like a 12-year-old, was Yuri's first reason, which had the blonde flinching a bit at how blatant he was with the answer. You are a minor and not even able to give consent by Russian law. It would be creepy to give you such a sexual song, especially with how shorty you look. It's heavily based in sexual desire, hence the name Eros. And just because the age of consent is younger in Japan, doesn't mean I'm comfortable with the thought of giving you such music. The heck is Shota? Yuuri, who had planned to just tell him he didn't need to know, was startled by Victor appearing suddenly and explanation at the ready, far too quickly in his opinion, too. They would need to talk later on. It's like a type of little boy character, typically under, 12 years, who are, girly and cute, and sometimes put in yaoi and made to do erotic and sensual things. Apparently, it's a big thing over in Japan. Yuuri slapped a hand over the man's mouth, almost ready to murder him. I look like what? Yuuri demanded, disgust plainly written across his face. Yuuri flushed. Well, I wouldn't say you completely look like... Fuck it, I'm taking the agape. Just shut up about it. I don't want to know anymore. Yuuri smacked Victor's arm in chastisement. Why did you have to tell him? It could have gone years without knowing. He hissed lowly, so no one else could possibly hear about it. Not that many of the people in the rink were fluent in English, but he wasn't looking to see if some had a better understanding than others did. Victor simply grinned and wrapped his arms around Yuuri so he couldn't try to escape. Not that he wanted to or anything. Discretion next time. Maybe. He huffed and folded his arms as best as he could, with Victor wrapped around him like a clingy squid. Why do I like you? Because I have a glorious ass and I'm charming. Well, his ass was definitely glorious. Yuuri would give him that one. And he could be charming if he actually tried, if he wasn't being such an ass half the time. Reaching back discreetly, he grabbed 2 handfuls of said ass and nodded firmly to himself, enjoying how Victor stiffened against his back. Victor's hips then moved in a circular motion, pushing something hot. Victor's erection, holy shit! Into his lower back as the older man groaned into his ear. Stop being gross, I get to practicing! Yuuri yelled from the other side of the ring, causing Yuuri to flush in mortification. He just gone and grabbed Victor in a public area. Aww, Victor whined. He always takes away the fun. Before taking off to practice his own routine, Victor gave Yuri's own ass a little squeeze and an appreciative Delightful. Victor, I have a new partner for my music. You're going down this season. Chris, is this the cutie you showed me with the fine ass and thighs? Victor, yes. Chris, and have you made a move yet? Victor, yes! Chris, finally! I was worried for a while there. You're usually up on those types of things quickly. Victor, I know! Chris, you've never waited 4 months to make a move on someone. I'm shocked and impressed by your dedication. Victor, thank you! He's a good kisser! His ex-lover is an ass to have given up on someone so fantastic! Chris, you've got it bad. Victor, maybe. Chris, and it's only been 4.5 months. Victor, I know, right? Chris, when am I going to meet your new beau? Victor, soon, hopefully. When are you coming to Russia? Chris, June. Victor, great! Yuuri will be moved to my room. By then, you can stay in the guest room, like always. Chris, thanks for the offer, lover boy. Is it alright if I bring someone along? Victor, as the Casanova of Switzerland finally found someone of his own. Chris, you remember Bastien from the Federation? Victor, no way! Chris, yes, way. We've been seeing each other unofficially for a while now, and he's asked to make it official afterwards. Victor, congratulations! And yes, bring him along! Double dates! Chris, you are the real MVP, Nikiforov. Victor, big smiley face! Chris, can't wait to come and visit. Do you think your Yuuri would be put off if I brought a pole? Victor, no clue. He's surprisingly hard to predict. Bring it anyway. Chris, will do. You better call me on the regular, said Ellie as she wiped down the bar with almost frustrated motions. Yuuri merely smiled and nodded, knowing that she was in the zone and he didn't want to disturb her. I mean it, Yuuri, the woman said, tossing the rag aside and fixing him with her attention. I will be calling you every now and then. We'll even go out to a film if anything good ever bothers to come out. I don't think you'll get away from me. Your friend Peachy and I have become mutuals. You aren't going to escape either of us. Flushed and slightly touched, Yuuri nodded. I'm sure Victor would like to meet you too. Ellie snorted as she pulled out a cigarette. He followed me months ago, Gatsky. I know things about your relationship that I probably could have gone without knowing. Oh no! Victor had the tendency to tell people things they didn't ask to know. Such as the time with Yura and their day off. The teen had wanted to come over to beat Yuuri at whatever game he'd managed to get a hold of, when Victor announced none too quietly that he and Yuuri had to get familiar with each other again. The mortification took days to die down. Ellie's devious smile softened a bit. I'm just a bit put out that I won't be able to tease you now that you're moving on to bigger and better things. Don't forget us lowly and talentless mortals, okay? I promise to stay in touch. I might even come by whenever I have some free time. Victor would probably want to come along after all. She reached out and flicked his nose. You better.
Oi, get it done. How did you get the idea for this?
Asked Yuuri as he stomped into their flat one afternoon in the middle of the summer. Yuuri pulled away from Victor's piano in order to give the teen his full attention. Yuuri was holding his mobile phone and it was opened up to Yuri's YouTube channel. The song selected had been a recent addition named Wings of Fire. Instrumental only, featuring a violin, an electric guitar, and a cello. Not exactly classical, but not exactly rock either. He didn't know what genre to put it in, so he didn't even bother. That song was inspired by watching you and Victor skate, he admitted. While you were doing those compulsory figures, as Jakob calls them, your skates kept making interesting sounds as the blades moved across the ice. I sat on the bleachers and began writing out a melody that came to mind, which is what the guitar is playing. The violin and cello are just accompaniments. The blonde stared down at the screen of his mobile, mouth only slightly agape.
You just wrote a song because of how our skates sounded on the ice?
Yep. I found a rhythm and worked with it. That one seems to be gaining a lot of popularity, which is shocking in my opinion, as it has no lyrics like some of my more popular pieces. People seemed to gravitate towards music with lyrics, so those types of songs were always the preferred ones. Yuuri said something in Russian that Yuuri in no way understood. Of course, Victor apparently did, as he came in from the kitchen, holding a plate of fresh pierogi, chastising the teen for his language. All he got for his efforts was a broad eye roll. Also, one of the pierogi was stolen.
Get it done. Would you please do the music for my exhibition for the GPF?
You're so certain you'll meddle? Asked Victor teasingly.
Fuck off, old man. Jakob wants Lily out to choreograph an exhibition to this crappy flowery music called Angel of the Fire Festival, and that so isn't me. The exhibition is mine, and I want to choreograph it, and I want to choose the music. I already have to skate to Allegro Appassionato in B minor and this agape song. For once, I would like to choose my damn music. I'm a senior now.
Yuuri could feel the frustration coming from Yuuri, and reached out to pat his shoulder. What do you have in mind? The pure joy on the blonde's face was adorable, and he had to withhold the urge to coo because Yuuri was 15 and not a little kid for Yuuri to baby.
Some heavy metal, please.
Definitely Yuuri's style. Yuuri lifted his mobile to his ear. Hello? Hi! A useful voice stuttered from the other side of the line, in Japanese no less. My name is Kanjiro Minami, and I'm a figure skater who is about to enter into the senior division. I wanted to hire you to, if you could, perhaps compose the music for my upcoming season. Yuuri gapes because this was not the first time this very request had happened that week. In fact, he'd gotten many requests from several figure skaters and a few dancers to compose music for their upcoming competitions and such. It turned out that doing Victor and Yuri's music for their season had been the right thing to do. Both were famous Russian athletes with a lot of sway. And despite the blonde's attitude, he gladly gave Yuri's name when asked. After the nationals for Russia, he had been getting propositions. Yuuri was apparently very versatile. By that, people were just happy with the songs Yuuri had managed to compose for his friends. In Yuri's opinion, Welcome to the Madness was better than Victor's exhibition song, which had been History Maker. Victor disagreed, obviously. Both were vastly different songs, however, and fit the personalities of the skaters very well. It had been important for Yuuri to capture them in the songs themselves. After his name had been released multiple times, Yuri's Instagram and Twitter had suddenly shot up in less than a week. A musician who could fit anywhere between classical music and heavy metal was apparently much preferred. Yuuri was already scheduled to help several figure skaters, including Victor, Yuuri, Mila, Yorgi, Christoph, and a young woman named Sara, who was Mila's girlfriend. And now he potentially would have another person to compose for. And it was only February! The next season was still a ways off! We would need to discuss things in person so we can get to know one another, Yuuri said after nearly a minute of no talking. Are you in Japan? Yes, sir! The boy hastened to reply. I'm in
Tokyo right now, but I can literally go anywhere if you need me to.
He seemed so sweet. Well, my family runs an onsen in Hasetsu in Kyushu. I'm due to visit home in mid-April. Would you be able to stop by while I'm there so we can get to know one another?
Yes, sir!
After a few minutes, they managed to hash out the details, and Yuuri ended the call, staring off at the sky in wonder. A year ago, he'd been playing music in the parks around St. Petersburg, living off the donations from the people who were kind enough to support him. And now he lived in the heart of the city. He was engaged to a world-class figure skater. He hadn't been in financial trouble in 13 months. He was able to talk to his friends whenever he wanted. And now he was taking some side classes on pole fitness. What had happened in the mess of his life to bring him here?
What is my Yuuri thinking about?
Asked Victor from his left. The man was holding 2 steaming cups of hot cocoa, and he looked really good, even though he was bundled up to conserve warmth. His blue eyes shone in the dying light of the sun and were far too beautiful for Yuuri to handle. Just thinking about how you somehow managed to turn my life around so much, he admitted, taking the cup from the other man and breathing in the delicious scent of chocolate and mint. I didn't really do much, my dear Katsudan. You were the one to draw me in with your beauty. Without you, we never would have met at all. He smiled in gratitude, enjoying Victor's praise as something from a year back rang through his mind. He came to realization. They'd helped each other. To have Victor beside him made his life no longer dissonant. And to have Yuuri helped Victor lose that bittersweet taste he'd gotten after being at the top for so long. I think we should just both take credit and leave it at that. Victor pressed a kiss to Yuri's temple. I support that idea very much, Zolotse. Taidama, Yuuri announced the moment he and Victor stepped foot in Utopia Katsuki. As advised earlier, Victor set to removing his shoes first and foremost. Yukan! Victor stood by and watched as an enormous group of people all rushed into the main hall, coming from various directions, all so they could see Yuuri. Yuuri greeted each person with a shy hug and a kiss on the cheek, mumbling things in Japanese for their benefit.
Yukan, how is your friend?
A woman with 2-toned hair asked, eyeing him with a smirk. Yuuri flushed adorably and took hold of Victor's hand in order to tug him forward. This is Victor Nikiforov. He's my fiancé. There was only a split second of silence before short women bustled their way on over, eyes that were so much like Yuri's, wide with joy. My baby is getting married to such a handsome young man! There was a low whistle from another woman who stood off to the side. Yuuri sure knows how to pick him. Victor was pulled into a hug by whom he assumed was Yuri's mother. The woman grinned and jabbered away in Japanese, patting him down and then switching to English to ask if he wanted a bowl of katsudan. He nodded enthusiastically. Yuuri has had nothing but praise for your katsudan. His is amazing, and he insists that yours is the very best. I would be honored to try it. Mommy-chan, come and help your brother and his fiancé. Katsuki Hiroko said, gesturing towards the 2-toned haired woman who had to put her cigarette out before coming over. So, Vic-chan, how did you propose to our Yuuri? Victor beamed then. He'd done it when he'd won gold at Worlds, presenting the medal to Yuuri right after his exhibition, which was to the song Death of a Bachelor. Victor had style, of course, and made sure to wear a white suit-styled costume to add to the presentation. Social media still wasn't over it. I have the video saved on my laptop, and if you give me a few moments, I can hook it up to a bigger screen so everyone can see it. Yuri's flushed face was hidden in Victor's shoulder, which earned him a kiss on the head. He was so adorable. Hiroko giggled and tugged them both further into the inn while telling Mari to take their things to Yuri's old room. Victor would make sure to thank her later on. For now, he had to woo his Yuri's family. End of Bittersweet Dissonance by Watermelon's Melonfelon. If you enjoyed this recording or the content, feel free to leave a comment below or a review at the original story from the link in the descriptions. Thank you for listening.